hopefully this will work. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the part of the notes here. So let me just pull up the notes here, where we are editing the topo surface points. So I want to show you folks how to regrade a site. Now tonight we're also going to be talking about phasing, so talking about building the model in its existing state and also in a later state, so during a renovation or doing tenant improvement. So this relates also to the design of the site, because we have our existing site that we get when we start a project, and then we'll probably be involved in changing the grading of the site. So that consists of a phase change. So we're going from an existing site to how we're going to have the site designed during construction. So what we're going to do here is we've got our building on the site now. And so what we want to do now that we've got our existing site here shown is we want to make some grading modifications to it. So this is stuff that was in last week's notes, and it's on page 11 of the notes. Now, what we're also going to do here is we're going to discuss the process of using what's called the graded region functionality in Revit. So we're going to, just to save time here, we're going to combine some of last week's information with what we're going to be discussing this week with the graded region toolset. So the idea with the graded region toolset is that you can see how much excavation and fill needs to be done on a site to make the changes in grade that you want between the existing site and the new site. So here's the process. You take your topographic model and you move it from the new construction phase to the existing phase. Now we're going to talk about all of this stuff tonight with regards to phasing, so just follow along for the time being. The site will turn gray. That's expected. That's what we're looking for here. So what we're going to do is go to the Massing and Site tab and use the graded region command. So when you click on this command, Revit gives you a couple of options. The default is to create a topo surface just like the existing one, or you can get rid of all of those internal points on the site, like delete them all, so you have as flat a site as possible. So what Revit would do is it would maintain a meet condition on all sides of the site, but try to make the site internally as flat as possible. So we're going to keep the site as it is, and then you pick the site to make it happen. So now what happens is Revit immediately opens up a copy of that gray topo surface. The gray topo surface is still there, but now what we're modifying is the copy. And now Revit's going to keep track of the amount of filling that we have to do and the amount of cutting that we have to do to support the changes in elevation, which we are all going to go through right now. So in our notes here, it says add these points relative to surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the site plan, and if you folks want to follow along, you guys want to maybe grab your, open up your site model right now, and go to the site plan within that file. And maybe here I'll go back to the point where we can all do this together. So once you've opened up your site model, click on the topo surface and set its phase created to existing. Now this isn't in last week's notes, but we're doing it now just so I can demonstrate this feature to you guys. Okay, once that's done, go to the Massing and Site tab and choose Graded Region. Once you've done that, you can just hit enter, and then click the edge of the topo surface, and now you are editing the revised, the new topo surface. So this is going to be our new version of the grading for the site. So in the notes, it specifies that we need to add some points here relative to the surface. Now, why? Well, if we look at the number of points that are defining this topographic model, you'll notice that there aren't any in this vicinity here along my cursor. There's a point here, there's a point here, and if you remember what I told you folks, that topographic models are made of triangles. Go to your visibility dialog box and click on any one of the categories just so it's highlighted underneath your cursor, and then hit T for topo. So it takes you down to the topo category. Expand it and you'll see the triangulation edges. Turn them on and hit OK. So now what Revit is showing you are the triangles that are built to create the topographic model. Now you can see in some cases here along the sloping part of the site we have some more points, so we have some more resolution. We have a higher resolution, we have higher quality data for defining, you know, the rise and fall of the land. But over here it's pretty, you know, we don't have that much information. So what we want to do is we're adding some points. So go grab the place point command on the modify tab here, and on the options bar, so that's immediately above the drawing area, switch from absolute elevation to relative to surface. So what are we doing here? Well, what we're doing is these points that we're adding are not going to change the elevation of the topography in this area. And in the notes here, it says add some points here, and it doesn't really matter how many you make, but just add a few along the northern edge of the site so that we can sort of tie down the dirt here so it stays at the same height. We're going to make some changes to the grading. So that's the first point here. We've added these points relative to surface. Then here you can see along the parking area, we're going to add some points here. So it's getting hard to see now here. I'm going to, so you can see here's our parking area here off the corner of the house. You guys can see on the screen there appears to be some dashed lines that are appearing underneath my cursor here. What's going on? Well, what's happening is that we are seeing the presence of the old topographic model along with our new topographic model. They're both being displayed simultaneously. I'm going to set us up so that we can hide the existing topography because it's not relevant to what we're doing. Go over and click on the site plan just once in the project browser. And what that does is it shows the properties of this view. Now scroll on to the bottom of the properties palette, and we're going to talk about phase filter in a few minutes. Switch it from show all to show complete. So again, click on site plan just once so it's highlighted in the project browser. Then come over to the properties palette and scroll on down to the bottom, find phase filter and switch it to show complete. Once you've done that, this will hide the original topographic model and we can place a few points here. So I'm just going to place them just here at the top, kind of right where our driveway is. So now we've got a few extra points, and you folks can see that we're getting extra triangles being created. So we're just creating some more resolution for our model. We're creating some extra detail. And the reason for this is that I want to keep the land fairly high up here, and then we're going to create sort of a low area here, and it's going to berm up onto that high point on the north part of the site. So now it says delete these 3 points down at the bottom here. So I'm going to switch to wireframe so I can see through the building. There we go. So now you folks can see where the building is transparent and you can see all the geometry through the building. And our notes are advising us to delete these 3 points here at the corner. So I'm going to go back to the modify command, or you can hit escape twice, and we're simply just going to delete those 3 points. There. Oh wait, did I delete the right? Oh, I think I deleted the wrong ones. I think I was supposed to delete these three here. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to add a few more points here. Now, before I add these next points, I'm going to go into 3D here, and you can see here, again, the existing building model, which you're seeing kind of in a red tone here on the side of the property, and the green is the property that we're working on right now. So if I wanted to get rid of the existing property, I'd expand 3D views and click on the 3D view view name, which is inside curly brackets. So expand 3D views, click once on 3D, and as we did before, scroll down to the properties box and switch the phase filter to show complete. This will hide the existing topographic model, and we're only looking at the renovated one. Now what we're going to do in this view here, we're going to finish the topo surface just for the time being. What we want to do is try and identify the height of our step here. So what we want to do is regrade the house, or regrade the site rather, so that the regrading of our dirt will match the height of this step outside the front door. How do we find out what height this is on the building? Well, you go to the Annotate tab and you grab the Spot Elevation tool. Spot Elevation. Annotate Spot Elevation in the 3D view. So before we start this command, I'm going to turn off the leader. So it'll just put the little note here right on the edge of the deck. Now it's showing in feet and inches. So what we need to do is change the units of our project, because usually we do our site design in meters. So if you folks type in UN for units, we're going to change our length units to meters to 2 decimal places. So type in UN for units and change our units to 2 decimal places. So now we know that our front step is at about 58.57 meters. So if we were to regrade the site around that step to about 58.5 meters, that would work. So here in 3D, you can put these little spot elevations on anything. So again, I've turned off the leader, and I can go up here and I can see what the elevation of my slab is up here. So it's 60.97 meters. So it's a nice way where you can sort of begin to identify the real world elevation heights of different parts of your building once it's linked into the site. So now we're going to click on the edge of our topography again, on the edge, so it's selected, and choose Edit Surface. So what we're going to do is I'll go back to the site plan here, and there's my front step. So I'm going to, I'll delete these points as well. And I'll add some new points at, what was it again? 58.5. So place point, and now I'm putting not relative to surface, but absolute elevation. So I'm using the place point tool after I've started to edit the topo surface again. Place point, absolute elevation, 58.5 meters. And I'll just sprinkle a few of these points around the bottom of the building here to provide that sort of nicely graded area in that zone. Now in the notes here, just because it's a slightly different orientation of the building, it's 58.7 meters instead of 58.5. So when we finish our topo surface now, and we go look at it in 3D, we've created, a little plateau here around the bottom of the house And now the next thing that we want to do here from the notes was to, oh yeah, so looking here, add 2 points under east edge of deck as shown, so right here, 58.7. So I'll go back to my site plan here, place point 58.7. And that's right here. So it's advising us to put points under the deck here at 58.7. And then back in the notes again. 6 points as shown, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at 60.5 meters. Place point, 60.5. And so it's along this sloping part here. So again, that's in the notes, and it creates that effect here on the house. So there's the 6 points that I just added at 60.5 meters elevation. And this is creating kind of a flat area up here in the top of the yard, and then creating a steep bank so that you have sort of an elevation separation between your upper yard and your lower yard. So you can see how we're switching between the site plan, putting in some points here in wireframe so we can see through the house, but we can still see the foundation walls, so we can put those points in, and then in 3D we can confirm what that's going to look like. And in 3D we're confirming the sea level height of the different parts of our linked building to help guide us in the regrading process. So this then allows us to better grade the site by looking at the height of the different, entrances of our building and their height above sea level once we've linked the building into the site. So now that we're done here, I'll hit finish. And when I click my site model here, Revit is telling us what's going on. We had to add 5,100 cubic feet of dirt, and we're cutting 317 cubic feet of dirt. Okay, nobody does cubic feet. Let's go units and go to volume here. Everybody who's got a brain does cubic meters. That's how we roll. So there we go. So we're filling 145 cubic meters. We're cutting 9, so it means net. If it's positive, you're filling. So we got to get 135 cubic meters of soil, 136, to the site. So obviously what you might want to do is try and get those the net close to 0, right? So you're filling as much as you're cutting and vice versa. Okay, so that's kind of what the stuff that we want to talk about last week with the regrading. We're actually going to kick into our actual notes after a break here. So let's take a 10-minute break and come back at 7:55, and we will carry on.